From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good Sunday afternoon and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Laura Hutchinson. We are now well into the warm months of the year, and this is the time that road construction picks up everywhere. While it may be disruptive to our travel, the projects are very important to our infrastructure and our local economy, and we are just getting started. There are a number of projects expected to start up over the next few weeks and months, and that's where 22 News in Focus comes in today. Today we'll talk about what projects are on the way, how much they'll cost, and what kind of impact they'll have on businesses and your life. We also have a state representative here who can not only talk about transportation projects, but also other legislation in the works on Beacon Hills. We have a lot to get to today, but first we begin with the major transportation projects impacting the region with Tim Brennan, Executive Director of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Really appreciate it. So this week, Mass DOT was here last week, to talk about the $3 billion spending plan. Let's start there because that was sort of the new information this week. What did you get out of that presentation?
Well, what the new administration is trying to do is give us all a sense of what projects are coming over multiple years. This is unusual in as much as it's a one-year plan only. It's for fiscal year 16. But it's helpful to know what is in the queue for our region and the other regions across the Commonwealth. They have promised in that to give a multi-year picture from fiscal year 17 through 21, and that will be coming out early on in calendar year 2016. There's a lot of rethinking going on in Boston about how projects are going to be reviewed and scored. There's actually a legislatively mandated body that's working on this, and their deadline is to generate a report by the end of June in terms of what criteria will be used to score projects. Our region's actually tried to jump ahead of that. We've developed new criteria. We're applying them this year to see if we can get some experience with going down this new route, and hopefully that will work out for the better.
Now we know some big projects that are coming, obviously the viaduct construction, the I-91 elevated highway, the rotary in West Springfield is another big one. What are some of these other projects that might not be grabbing our attention so much but are important and included in some of this funding or on the way?
Well, there's a number of projects on the land side. Boston Road, for example. The City of Springfield had the good fortune of having some money post-tornado and working on Boston Road inside the city limits. There's another piece going into Wilbraham that has to be done, estimated about $2 million. There's a portion of I-91 that still needs work, mostly some rehab and some pavement work. Northampton, East Hampton segment, that's probably $8 million job. Belchertown, we have a project that's queued up for Route 181 in Belchertown. It's about a $6.5 million job. So there's a goodly number of projects scattered all over the region that are teed up for fiscal 16. Could be a lot more if there was more money.
Yeah, but some communities will start to notice these projects beginning. So let's talk about the viaduct because this is something that's going to impact a lot of people. There is a public hearing on this project on Thursday. Let's talk about where we are with this. I know that we have heard that the project is a little delayed and is now delaying MGM's development. What is your understanding as to what's going on behind that?
Well, this is a mega project, and it's a very complicated one, and it's an expensive one. Probably the current estimate is all-inclusive about $175 million job. Because of the complexity, when the contractors were bidding on the job, they asked for more time from the state. And I think it was a wise decision to give them more time. When we're talking about that kind of public money, I'd always like to feel comfortable that you've dotted every I and crossed every T. So they gave them more time, but not an extraordinary amount of time. But as we sit, the project has been awarded to the low bidder. The low bidder is getting ready to start the work. They've been given a notice to proceed, which is a formal step. We won't see activity out on the deck of 91 before probably late summer, early fall. And again, the expected time frame is 3 years. It's important to note, though, the state has built in a reward system of up to $9 million for every day that the contractor can beat the expected timeline. They would get a $50,000 incentive award to a maximum of $9 million. So that's one of the ways the state is trying to mitigate the impacts and make it for a shorter time that might otherwise be expected.
And this isn't 3 years straight. This would be like 3 construction years. There are only certain months, or is this straight through?
This is straight.
Wow.
We're going to be working in the winter, and that's again to try to make sure that we get this done. People go 3 years, U of A, but the actual timeline for a project like this is 6 years. So this is an expedited schedule, and we're pulling out all the stops to try to make it as short a time frame without compromising the quality of the project, safety, et cetera.
Okay, so for 3 years, what is the plan to handle the traffic? I know that Mass DOT has been doing some research to handle all of those cars, and I'm sure they'll be addressing this at the public hearing on Thursday. What do you know about the plan so far?
There was a whole variety of steps that are involved, Laura, and they may have been refined since the last time. There's closures of ramps that have to go on for safety reasons right near the teeth of downtown. There's a temporary ramp construction that's part of the scheme. There's a lot of monitoring with cameras. There's police details that will be out. There's going to be changes to the way certain intersections are signaled. So again, to their credit in this case, I think MassDOT is really trying to look for every possible way. But they also indicated that they wanted to sit down with the contractor that was awarded the contract and pick their brains about best ideas too. And so I think there's been a little bit of dwell time, and next Thursday we should be hearing more about, are the plans for mitigation the same or refined?
And do you know that the detours of the traffic, are they very specific to certain streets, or are you thinking all the cars are just going to kind of be dumped down Columbus? And I mean, is there an intricate way to make this work that's not such a headache?
The best way to think about it, at least that I would offer, is that it's a whole system of mitigations that work together. So some of it is trying to provide for alternate routes. Some of it is to provide for better real-time information. Part of it is to try to reconfigure what you have now, knowing that this project will be underway. So all the pieces are presumably working together to get a bigger impact, positive. Undeniably, you have to have some disruptions. It'd be silly to think otherwise. But every time I talk to folks about this is not a project that can be put off. It's not a project we can't do. There's real safety involved here in terms of, we've had some incidents, you've covered them, about big chunks of the deck falling out. That has to get fixed, and we can't fix it unless we get to the superstructure that holds the deck up.
Okay, so that brings me to my question about the contractor. You know, should we be concerned about this going to just the lowest bidder? I mean, this is a very important highway that people travel. Safety is, of course, a concern. What do we know about this developer? And, you know, is the cheapest price tag always the best option when it comes to such an important roadway and all these cars? What do you know about that decision?
Lowest bid is a matter of law. But for some mistake, serious flaw, if a contractor has come forward and has a credible bid and it's the low bid, it's the obligation of government to accept it. There is time built in to scrutinize those bids. And again, that goes back to your earlier question about why so much time to scrutinize these. Then there's real-time inspections. While this work is going on, the state is essentially policing the project and doing inspections to make sure the project is being done to spec. It's meeting all the specifications, so that not after the project is done, but in real time as you're building it, you're making sure it's put together correctly.
Yeah, we have so much patchwork on 91. I know many people are just feeling frustrated and just want to see this done correctly, and then we can move on.
Great view of mine. I want to see what needs to be fixed is to look at it above.
From above, it's amazing. It's like a checkerboard. Now, how closely is MGM working with Mass DOT? Because that's a huge project as well.
Very closely. I mean, this issue came up early on as the project was being brought forward. So MGM folks have been meeting with MassDOT, and the city has been directly involved in all of that as well. So the communication has been there, and it's been pretty robust from everything I understand. Again, trying to align these in the best sense of the way. For example, MGM has said that the first thing they want to build is the parking garage, so that the parking that they're displacing can be replaced as quickly as possible, and that will help downstream with the way the project unfolds and opens.
Okay, and you don't have concerns about MGM getting pushed back too far?
I think, again, I don't claim to be an expert, but there's a certain timeline that MGM has put forward to stay with, and in order to go away from that schedule, they really need to visit with the Mass Gaming Commission, which I think is teed up to happen in the near term. But if there's a bona fide reason for them wanting to change, and that's an acceptable reason, I would assume the Gaming Commission would look upon that favorably.
Okay, and quickly, because we are short on time for this, but very quickly, what, as far as the West Springfield Rotary is concerned, that's round 2 coming up next week, this week, Friday into Tuesday. What exactly are they doing there, and is this the last step of that?
As far as I understand, this is the last step, and this is a project that's in that system I was talking about a moment ago, which they want to finish because there's an expectation Route 5 would receive additional traffic during the I-91 construction period. So the ability of that rotary to process traffic in a more expeditious way would be, again, a win for everyone concerned.
And when they did part 1, they said they would be done Tuesday morning, and I think they were done like Monday morning, very early. So hopefully that will be able to happen again. It happens very quickly.
All this expedited technique is to try to mitigate the impacts.
It's pretty amazing. Tim Brennan, Pioneer Valley Planning, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Some great information. Of course, we have that public hearing this week, so we'll learn a lot more this week. Thank you. And how will the viaduct project affect commuters in the Springfield area? We'll have some answers after the break. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about the large-scale infrastructure projects that will be impacting the region in the next few years. One of the largest repair projects is the I-91 viaduct, or the elevated highway project that runs through Springfield. This project will have traffic rerouted through West Springfield and downtown Springfield. Here to talk to us about how this project will be affecting residents and commuters in Springfield, we have Chris Signoli, Director of Springfield's Department of Public Works. Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So, the DPW doesn't exactly have jurisdiction of the highway.
Correct.
But you are preparing to handle all of these cars coming off onto your side streets.
Very much so.
Talk to me about how this preparation is being handled right now.
About a year and a half ago, when Mass DOT started the design process, they brought us into it. We knew that there was going to be traffic on our streets that was going to get diverted. So as part of the project, we basically had significant upgrades that are going to occur as part of the project on the surface roads in the city of Springfield. East and West Columbus Avenue from State Street North, and a number of other intersections through the city. That is going to be the first phase of work that they're going to be starting right after the 4th of July, and all that is going to be in place before they start to close things on the highway so that the city roads can be able to handle it. So that was the analysis that we went through, that we wanted to make sure that we weren't just going to get a bunch of traffic dumped on us that we couldn't handle. We worked with Mass DOT and the designers to make sure that the city was going to be able to handle it.
So where are the cars going to go? I've seen those Mass DOT boxes and the wires all around the side streets.
Yep.
Where are the cars going to go?
Basically, the highway project is going to be taking away one lane during construction. They're going to be moving some of the lanes, but there's going to be one less lane up there. So we anticipate that a number of people who will be coming to the city, we're going to be getting off in different places, uses the frontage roads as East and West Columbus Avenue more often. So we wanted to make sure that they could handle it getting in and out of the city, because as the ramps start to close, they're going to be going in different routes. And so we looked at that analysis and made sure that all of those intersections can handle it as part of the construction project, and then also in moving forward as part of the casino project, because they are severely intertwined as far as during construction on the viaduct and then post-construction with the casino. So we really, I was very happy with what we did with Mass DOT and the MGM team and working with the designers to make sure that we as the city got what we needed to move forward on both fronts.
Okay, so are these like changing of lights? What actually had to be changed in order for this to work?
Basically, all of the intersections from State Street north on both East and West Columbus Avenue are going to have complete new signalization, new lights, new timing to be able to handle the volume of traffic. The lights that are out there are a little antiquated, so we've gotten brand new signalization system in there, new real-time cameras for us to be able to monitor traffic and adjust signalization as needed. As we know, certain times during the day are going to be a little bit more either you're going to have some backups and others, so we can go through on a daily basis and change signal timing to make sure that it's handling the traffic. So really getting that as part of the design early on, it became part of the estimate, and we were very happy working with Mass DOT. So we're at this point relatively comfortable that the city's going to be able to handle it. We've met a number of times with all the businesses in the city and the business groups to make sure that they knew what was happening and what roads were going to be impacted and what it means to their commuters and their workers as well getting in and out of the city. So I think we've done a very, very good job in working with, when I say we, I'm talking about us, the state, MGM, as everybody has really come together to make sure that this works as best as possible.
Now, what about when you have some of these backups, or multiple cars, there can be accidents and things that go wrong.
Correct.
How is there any kind of plan to be able to get emergency crews through or tow trucks that need to get through? You've been in that situation where there's construction and people and, and you find that they can't even get through. So how do you handle that? Because we're talking about years of this.
Absolutely. One of the things that we worked with the state police, the local police, and Mass DOT, that in the contract of the contractors working on 91, he has to have wreckers, tow trucks, everything on site right there to be able, if there is an accident, if there is a problem, to get the vehicles off the highway as quickly as possible. And that is specifically what they are there for, so that you don't have to wait for a tow truck from another jurisdiction to come. That is going to be their responsibility. Immediately work with the police, get up on the highway, get the vehicles off as quick as possible to get the highway reopened. And it's in the contract. The vehicles will be there 100% of the time. It's not like they're just going to be there from 8 to 5. They will be on site 24/7.
That's good to know.
Yep.
Now, how are you comparing, how do we separate, I guess, the highway project and then the MGM? Because eventually this construction is going to happen at the same time. Are you
Correct.
you're not expecting MGM's going to wait until that's done?
No, there's kind of two issues. Number one, the MGM project from a construction standpoint is a big project.
Right.
So we know that there's going to be massive amount of bigger materials, whether you're talking about precast materials, steel beams, rebar, and things like that need to get delivered to the site. So we worked proactively, met with the Gaming Commission and the contractors to set up delivery routes where they can and where they can't go, how they get in and out of the city before the ramps are closed, after the ramps are closed, how they do it, times of day to be able to do it. So that, I think, is addressed very, very well. Number two is just trying to coordinate the timing of the actual construction up on the highway with the opening of the MGM casino. Because basically MGM is planning that when the highway is ready, all the ramps are back open, the highways in use is when they want to have their opening. And right now, that's kind of the discussion that we're having. Now that the contractor is under contract, he has a notice to proceed of May 21st. He's starting in the next couple weeks of making sure that he's moving along so that the MGM schedule starts to mirror it. And at this point, we as the city are very confident that we're at that point right now, and we want to make sure that the construction project stays on schedule, which these typical problems that we estimate that are on a major construction project like this really shouldn't be there, because everything could be seen ahead of time. We see the deck from above, from below. There are going to be no surprises, so it's just a matter of making sure that they stay on schedule, meet the schedule, meet the incentive, and we anticipate that the MGM project will be able to follow. We're talking December, January, February, December of 16 or 17 and beginning of 18. MGM has starting their construction now, as a matter of fact. So we're really in line with where we want to be on both projects.
Okay, now construction is going to be happening, as Tim said, during the winter months as
Yes.
well. And in Springfield, winter can be tough with the snow and
Really?
you lose parking. Tell me about it. How was your winter?
And that's one of the things that we built into, on the highway, there's going to be a snow removal set up as part of that, so that the highway can remain fully open. on the city streets, we're going to be looking at doing something similar to that as well, to make sure that we have those when I say the passageways, the east to west Columbus Avenues, the central business district area that people can get through. So we're going to be working on a similar plan in the city to make sure that, you can get around the city as quickly as you can with the least amount of disruption, and not just say, hey, there's snow on the ground,
Right.
but working proactively to make sure that we get rid of it as quickly as I can so that all the businesses can operate. Because not only are you going to be dealing with winter, you're dealing with construction. Businesses still need to operate, and if they're hampered by the construction, we want to make sure that everything else is taken care of.
Yeah, we're hoping that this construction brings people in
Absolutely.
and they're able to go to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll be able to talk to the Chamber of Commerce about that in just a little bit. Now, this actually isn't just the only project that you're dealing with. You have these are all good things, by the way. Not
Absolutely.
dealing with in a good way. We like
Yep.
to see these. Boston Road, State Street. What do you have going on? What is the timeline?
The
look like
Boston
there?
Road construction project, about $7.5 million, is 99.9% complete at this point
Right.
in the city of Springfield. We have a few little things, so in the next week or two, the final paving is already done. We expect that to be completed in the next couple weeks and have a little ribbon cutting for that, and so the businesses will be back to normal. Sumner, Allen, Abbott, and Harkness in the city is about 90% done itself.
Right.
And we're going to be moving on. We, as the DPW, are doing about $10 million worth of resurfacing, reconstruction work in the city between last fall and this fall. So we're doing over 100 streets. The Springfield Water Sewer Commission is doing a number of streets over with their work, along with Columbia Gas. So our job is to orchestrate all that work from a timing standpoint, where people are working in the city, what time, making sure that, okay, you can work over here and not over here, making sure people can get around the city. And being able to orchestrate that has probably been our most time-consuming thing at this point. So there is a lot of stuff going on in the city right now from an infrastructure standpoint, and I know it's the busiest in the 5 years that I've been here. We've been working with the casino project, and I know the mantra's kind of been, what's happening down there? Nothing's happening. The city has issued over 50 permits of work that needs to be done down there, and I think we've orchestrated the traffic and the coordination on that very well, and have done the same thing for a lot of the other projects in the city. Is there disruption? Yeah, there always is, but it hasn't been the major problem that a lot of people thought it was going to be. So, my staff and everybody that we work with, and on the contractor side, and with MGM and the Mass DOT, we've been very happy with the coordination and communication that's been done. But the city has a lot of projects that are going on. We're also going to be dealing with the CNR Railroad project that's going to be up on Page Boulevard, that's going to be starting construction soon. So a lot of major projects going on in the city at
You
this
said
point.
it's the busiest you've seen in about 5 years.
Absolutely.
Where did all this money come from? I mean, did we get an influx somewhere?
A lot of it, obviously we have about $2.7 billion worth of work going on in Springfield, and probably about half of that is public money, is tied up in a couple of projects, the MGM Casino and the Viaduct and a few others. However, there is a huge amount of private investment that is going on in the city right now. CNR being one of them, and other projects that are just going around on the city. So, there's a lot of public money that's coming in, our regular Chapter 90 money. The city has done some bonding, but it really hasn't been, any one thing that has fallen out of the sky for us to do this. Our fiscal setup in the city right now is excellent. Our coordination communication with the state has been fantastic. So we've been able to move forward on a lot of fronts here, from an economic development standpoint on the private side, and then a public standpoint on ours.
Great.
So it really has been an exciting time for the city.
You have so much going on. I don't know how you're juggling it all. Winter almost seems like a break for you now. I'm looking forward to the winter again. No, Chris Signoli, thank you so much for coming on.
You're very
and
welcome.
talking to us.
Thank you
There's
very
a lot
much.
happening, and it sounds like you have it all under control. So thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here. And after the break, we'll be discussing the economic opportunities that these projects will bring to the region and how they'll affect businesses while they're completed. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about the impact of redevelopment and infrastructure projects here in Western Massachusetts. We talked to a regional planner and Springfield's DPW director about the effects of construction and drivers and on drivers and residents. And while all this construction may present a temporary problem to businesses located in the construction area, it will hopefully lead to increased economic development in the long run. Here to discuss the economic impact of the regional projects, we have Jeff Shafrida, President and CEO CEO of the Affiliated Chambers of Commerce of Greater Springfield. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here, Laura. Thanks.
So first, let me find out if that's true. So when construction is going on, are businesses thinking that construction workers are going to bring more business, or are we thinking that we're going to be losing customers? What typically happens when we have these big projects in an area where there are businesses and restaurants?
Well, I think business first gets a little bit apprehension about the disruption, if you will, that will take place. But in the case of I-91, about a year and a half or so ago, the business community actually sat down with the city, with the state. As a matter of fact, they asked us to survey our members of where are you coming from, where do you park, where do you go to work. And they took all of that data. It was just an incredible response to the survey, which I think again showed the interest. And I know they took that into their thought process of where they would reroute traffic and everything. So I think over the last year and a half, because of all that outreach that took place, businesses, and we went all the way up and down the State Street corridor, not just downtown, feel very comfortable that their input has been listened to, and some of those problems that they perceived will be alleviated.
Okay, so when we hear about this construction beginning on 91, and even the Rotary project in West Springfield that closed down, portions of Route 5, is there any effort to encourage people to come out, a campaign, so to speak? How do we get those Connecticut people who typically come up to still come up even when they hear that 91 is under construction?
It's all about communications, and we've got a great relationship with Mayor Sarno's office and with Mass DOT. So, for instance, the hearing that's coming up Thursday, we got notice of that a couple of days ago, probably when Channel 22 did as well. So we put that onto our website. We get as much information as we can, especially with I-91, that is part of the overall plan, that we'll get notified if any changes happen, so that we can get it out to businesses so they can then communicate to their customers. The hotels are obviously very concerned about this, so as much lead time as we can give businesses, they can then get to their customers as well. So again, there's a communications and marketing, if you will, plan that's built into everything.
So who do you think is going to be benefiting the most from this construction? Are you seeing surrounding communities like Agawam or even West Side, who's right there? Are you seeing those businesses preparing for an influx of traffic and that this could be a boom for them?
Well, I think, whether it be a boom for them or not, I don't know. I'm hearing that some businesses are already, directing their customers. Maybe you can do more over, with telecommunications nowadays. A lot of times you only have to go to your insurance agent. You can do that, by phone or computer. So I think some of them are making those adjustments because, truthfully, there will be disruption, so the more traffic we can take off the roads during this, the better. So I don't know if, I've not heard anybody that considers it a boom. There may be some food trucks that'll do well with the construction workers and everything. But outside of that, I think mostly your bricks and mortar folks are making those adjustments right now to try to get as many people as they can to do business other ways.
Did you see any adjustments to things like summer hiring or anything? Is hiring down because they're thinking that people aren't going to be coming in, or is hiring up?
No, I don't think so. Actually, if you look at the latest, kind of going off track here, but if you look at the latest unemployment figures for Springfield, it's down to 7.4. And quite frankly, it was in the double digits probably the last 2 years at least. So I think to the contrary, I think the economy is doing well. The impact really, if this project is not done, would be devastating to the entire Pioneer Valley, because we always focus on Springfield when we talk about I-91, but clearly anybody up in Franklin County, whether it be Yankee Candle or whatever it may be, is their goods and services are going up and down that spine, all the way from the Canadian border to New York for that matter. So this is really a regional project that has a huge impact on the region's economy.
And how about the casino coming to town? Have we seen much, is this spurring new businesses? And have you seen new businesses coming to the area in anticipation of that? What are you experiencing?
We've seen some new businesses, but I know we work very closely with MGM and again the mayor's office. I think Kevin Kennedy, as Economic Development Director, would tell you that the amount of inquiries that Springfield has from different businesses, not necessarily because they're connected to the casino or want to do business with them. I think there's some of that, but quite frankly, that's put Springfield on the map. We've always been proud of our city. We've always been on the map. But now I think when you have a world-class organization like MGM, Now we have the leading train manufacturer in the world, in CNR, coming in. I think more and more people are hearing Springfield and saying, well, let me take a look at that. And as they look at it, I think they're realizing that that may be a place that we want to go. So I think MGM has driven a lot of that, quite frankly, that is connected directly to the casino, but also indirectly.
Yeah, well, we've seen a couple of hotels going in, or inquiries for hotels,
Absolutely.
but that new hotel, you know,
On
it seems
Columbus.
like that would be directly sort of an effect from that, right?
I think that one was. I think we've seen a conversion of Silver Brick has come into downtown and taken a subsidized housing of over 100 units of subsidized housing, and as those subsidies expire, turning it into market rate housing. They came in a little bit before MGM, but I can't believe that having MGM there with their 3,000 employees that they hope to have also wasn't going to attract that type of conversion, which again is going to bring folks in with disposable income, and then I think you'll see the retail build from there once you bring those people downtown.
And how about the opposite? Have you seen any businesses wanting to pull out because this is coming in and it just doesn't fit what they're doing?
I've not seen that. I think, you know, the chamber, you know, came out in support of MGM early on. You know, we've got over 800 members, so we had a few that, you know, that had a negative feeling, but quite frankly, I think that was based on their own moral beliefs or whatever they may be. So I don't think it was based on any negative economics. So I've not seen that at all.
Okay, and as far as parking goes, some people have shown concerns to us, you know, about parking when MGM is underway and the viaduct is under construction. Of course, the parking garage is the first thing that MGM wants to do, but there are still some people who are concerned about finding parking. Is there any, what do you know about helping people get downtown and still do what they need to do?
Well, I know I park under I-91 North, and I look up every day when I leave my car there.
And wonder.
And wonder if it's going
Today's
to be
the
there in
day.
one piece.
Yeah.
Although there's a lovely wooden ceiling in that garage now, because again, it shows
Right.
you, in all seriousness, the concern that's there. So I think up until about a couple months ago, there was some real concern. Mary McNally at the Parking Authority, who's been involved in this, had an engineering study done of the Civic Center garage. We all know that that is nearing the end of its useful life. It was built about the same time as the I-91 corridor. And the good news came back that engineering study showed that the top floor, which hasn't been used for parking in about 3 years, is perfectly safe. And Mary and the Parking Authority is putting about $1 million into that building, which will help get it through its next 5 years of life and open up probably another 300 spots. She's worked diligently. There's other parking lots that are 2 or 3 blocks away. So there's a game plan in place, and at this point in time, if I have to get moved out of I-91 North because of the top floor, there's a place for me to go within 2 or 3 blocks from there. So it's all been beautifully handled, and of course MGM's been great working with the city and Mass DOT, that once that parking garage is open, then it will be accessible to parkers. So I don't think parking, if anything, quite frankly, once MGM opens up, there'll be more parking in Springfield than ever before.
Very good. It sounds very organized. It seems you're confident and you know, are specifically impacted by that. So that's good to know. And it seems like you have a very positive outlook on the economy and how this is impacting, that we're in good shape.
I think we're in good shape, and it's just going to be better. There's just so many. It's just not 1 or 2 projects going on right now. There's probably 5 or 6 that
Right.
at any point in time before we'd be happy with any one of them, but to have all 5 going on at the same time.
Pretty incredible for
all
us from
good.
Mass. Wow.
all
Jeff
good.
Shafrida, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura.
Nice to have you on. And after the break, we'll hear from a state legislator about the state's involvement in the infrastructure projects. Stay with us. A lot more to get to. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about transportation projects in our area, where we stand on big projects that are about to start and what other projects we can expect in the future. Joining me now, we have Mike Finn, State Representative and Vice Chair on the Joint Committee on Transportation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So talk to me. We have a lot of projects going on, as we're hearing from everyone that we've had on the program so far. As someone on that Transportation Committee, where is this money coming from?
So a few years last year, I think it was, we did the transportation bond bill, and we allocated a lot of monies that the state was going to borrow for so that we could do a lot of these projects. I think if you look at historically the amount of projects that are in the queue that need funding and the amount of money that we have available to be able to do those things, we had to try to do our best to make sure that those monies become available on a regular basis so that we can do projects like the 91 viaduct and the the rotaries in West Springfield and the underpasses and other projects like that.
Okay. Why did the state take so long, or was it Mass DOT, to finally get moving on the viaduct project? That's something we've seen, we've heard of these events, and obviously we want this done properly, but could this have been done any sooner? I guess, why did it take us to here?
Yeah, I don't know if I could comment on whether or not it could have taken place quicker.
Sure.
One of the things that's important to realize when we look at a project in the size and the scope of 91 is the fact that there's different monies that are flowing in to pay for that project. There's some federal monies that are coming in, there's some state monies that are coming in, there's the amount of coordination that goes in between the builder and the city, and where to reroute all the traffic that we've heard from some of your other guests today. So really it's about getting all the pieces of the puzzle together so that we can say, all right, this is where we're at in the stage of the game, and we're going to go forward and make this a reality.
Okay, and we were hearing about the developer, that it is law that the lowest bid goes through. Is that the best option when you are talking about an elevated highway that so many people drive on? Maybe you can talk me through this process and how we should still feel confident with
Yeah,
it.
sure. So one of the things I think that was missed in the earlier conversation is the fact that all of the bidders, whether they're the low bidder or the high bidder, they all come in and they're all bonded. So what we're asking for is when someone comes in and says we're gonna, we're qualified to do a job like this, we want them to put their money where their mouth is. They have to be able to show that they're insured, and if something goes wrong, they have backup monies to help be able to pay for any incidentals that may occur. But then also what's important is the incentives that are built into the contract. So there's a drop dead date, so to speak, of where we want the project to be completed by. So now the builder is incented to complete the project in advance. So if you look at the 91 viaduct project, for instance, they are there's an incentive built into that contract of about $50,000 a day. So if the builder is able to complete that project in advance of the date that we asked them, they'll be able to up to about $9 million. But it also goes the other way. So what we're saying is, this is what we think the timeline should be. If you're not done by the time we asked you to do, there's a penalty phase where they're going to be penalized $50,000 a day. So within the contract itself for the bidder, when they come into a project before they even before they get the contract, they're aware of all these different aspects, and most of them all done other state projects and are familiar with everything.
Okay, we heard about this $3 billion package, basically, that's being distributed now, and $1 billion is going to the MBTA, and the rest is sort of dispersed throughout the state. Do you think that was appropriate to have $1 billion go to and then the rest sort of, how did you sort of view that? Do you think, talk to me about why that was important.
So when it comes to the MBTA, I think what gets lost out here in Western Mass is how significant of an impact it has on the greater Boston economy.
Right.
2/3 of the state population live in within 128. They need to have a public infrastructure such as that.
Right.
And so when we talk about that, it's important to remember. But when you talk specifically about the money for the MBTA and the transportation bond bill that we have, Western Mass actually benefits from that money in the fact that in the legislation we required that the builder of the trains have roots here in Massachusetts, and that is the direct result of that is the Changchun Railroad that's coming to Springfield, and they're going to be using the Springfield facility as a hub for all of North America. So this isn't just the state benefiting from that $1 billion. This is the state benefiting, for years and years to come. And I think that the fact that they've chosen Springfield is a great sign for the city, because with the other developments that are going on with the casino, with the Changchun Railroad, the city's really going under a revitalization, and it's great to see all these things happening. As was touched on earlier, the unemployment rate in Springfield is down, and the greater Western Mass area in general. So I think there's a lot of things to really be excited about, and I wasn't as concerned about the $1 billion.
Okay.
You know?
Were there any projects in our area that you wanted to see funded and maybe didn't, but you would like to push for that in the future?
Yeah, so one of the things that I know that's in the queue is the, I always refer to as the Agawam West Springfield Bridge. I mean, that's a bridge that is definitely in need of a repair and replacement, and I know that I think we're in the queue and the monies have been set aside, but we still have to get to the goal line to make that project a reality. But there's been so many other projects in West Springfield, in anticipation of all these other things like the Riverdale, the rotary that's being replaced right now, the underpass that's being done, the bridge raising for CNS Railroad and for the double stack train transportation. So in West Springfield in the last few years, we've been very benefited by state resources coming to the town. I think it's about close to $30 million, so that the townspeople aren't paying for real estate taxes. So in that respect, I'm very happy with the work that's been done, but there's always more to do.
And we didn't get a chance to talk about Amtrak earlier as well, but that's a really big boom for our area to be able to have that Vermonter really complete. And I know there's still work being done on that as well.
So the Knowledge Corridor train is a great, I think it's going to be great for this area, the train transit. I personally would like to see an east-west train.
Okay.
It would be great if I didn't have to drive every day to Boston, because the traffic on the Pike can be quite difficult at times. But I think that if you look at the way the area has been coordinating, the way the area has been focused on making changes for the future, I think that the area is really ripe for the future.
Okay, very good. Mike Finn, State Representative. We'll continue our conversation after the short break. We'll be able to talk about some other issues happening on Beacon Hill. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been talking about the major construction and infrastructure projects that are planned for the region and how they'll impact residents and businesses and the economy in our area. We are continuing our conversation now with Mike Finn, State Representative and Vice Chair of the Joint Committee on Transportation. Before we left off, you sort of mentioned the train. We were talking about Amtrak, and you said you would like to see one going east-west. I do want to have the chance to ask if you think that that is something that is an actual consideration right now.
I think it's something that in the relatively near future we could see some movement on. I'm thinking, maybe about 10 years or so, but there's a demand, and I think that if there was to be such an improvement, like to bring the train out here, I think it would do wonders for the Western Mass economy. You'd be able to see people that, the hour and 25-minute commute could maybe be shortened down to an hour, and you might see people like more willing to, move out to Western Mass. So I think it'd be a boon for the entire economy if we can get it to happen.
Even for Boston, we were just talking about the traffic outside of the city. Sometimes probably deters people from wanting to go out there just to visit. I mean, Boston's a great city, but then you think about the traffic you have to sit in when you're either going in and coming out. It would probably help the entire state.
No, it would, and I can tell you from personal experience, there's nothing worse than being stuck on the Pike in between exits after if there's an accident or if something happens, and the Pike is what it is. We're a built-out state. It can't really be expanded upon. There's not much you can do with it. So other than to maybe bring the rail and alleviate some of the pressure there.
Yeah, it would be pretty nice to see. I think a lot of people would support that. I do want to change topics just while we have you, just to be able to hear how the state is responding to some of the other bigger issues right now. The opioid crisis is really taking headlines right now. I mean, this seems to have grown exponentially over the last few years. So I just want to find out where we are with handling that, and if there is any plan in place to help some people receive treatment.
Sure. I think the reality is that it's a true epidemic at this point, and it's scary as a parent, as a legislator, and seeing what happens to families, but I think that one of the important parts about this is the legislature has, been actively trying to address it. There's been a few different pieces of legislation that have passed. There was an embracing of opiate deterrent medications, so the technology is such now that they can make these drugs that are pain medications abuse deterrent or tamper resistant, so that if they're tampered with at all, they become ineffective, which is a great technology. It's something that I think medical industry has been embracing as well. There's been a lot of things by way of treatment. The legislature in the last legislative session, we did some language in there that made it so that insurance companies had to cover if a doctor said, this person's requiring this treatment, they can't deny coverage, which makes it so that anybody can get the treatment that they need. And the legislature, myself included, we're not unaware of the fact of how bad it is. And I think the statistic that sticks out in my mind most when I look at this epidemic is the fact that Massachusetts has lost more residents to opiate overdose than we have in both Iraq wars and the conflicts that are going on right now. So I think when people look at it in that perspective, we're losing family members here, never mind over in war zones.
And do you think that we're paying close enough attention to prescriptions and how much of one prescription doctors are giving out, and people who might be filling at multiple, because you might have a high school football player who gets hurt and they're prescribed something and given so much more than they might need, and it could start right there. So do you think that we're paying close enough attention to our medical professionals?
I think that you're seeing a shift towards that. I know that on the campaign trail, for instance, I remember hearing vividly Charlie Baker tell the story about how his son got hurt in a game, and he, the first thing he did was get a prescription of I think the story is something, a high amount of pills, but he said, take 4 or 5 of them and throw the rest of them out because you're not going to need them. And great parenting there by the governor. But yes, I think if you look at prescription monitoring programs that are in existence and that we're trying to bolster, we're trying to turn an eye towards how many pain medication pills are required, for each accident. When should doctors be seeing the warning signs? There's also legislation that addresses younger, children born opiate addicted. There's a new database to show we're making them or requiring them to report this more often. So I think you're seeing, from every corner of Massachusetts, there's a series of tragic incidences that are requiring the legislature to act, that are requiring, school districts to stay on top of it more. Just Tuesday night, I think in West Springfield, there was a big informational seminar required for all athletes, that they come in and they hear stories about what can happen when you get addicted. And so I think that, the community has to come together to address this type of a situation so that the kids, our youth, or even the adults, hear it from all aspects. And
I know that there is going to be an announcement tomorrow on Monday regarding this. This seems like it's more of a topic on Beacon Hill. Would you say that this is one of the biggest issues that legislators are tackling right now? I mean, obviously you have a huge number like the budget.
Well, so I would say it's definitely within the top 3. I mean, the state budget is clearly an ongoing issue. That's a big one. The opiate crisis is another one. Actually, we just got a brand new top story the other day when the auditor came out with the Mass Health misbilling, so to speak. So I mean, that is definitely one of the ones. And there's a mental health and opiate subcommittee in the legislature that's specifically tasked with looking at how do we impact this in a positive way, and how do we help our residents.
And speaking of the Mass Health audit, we just have less than a minute, but what is the response to that? How are we sort of going to be keeping a closer eye, or what's the plan?
To be honest with you, it's a bit outrageous. If you look at the state of the Massachusetts economy right now, $1.8 billion was the deficit that we were faced with, and if you look at the misappropriated spending in the Mass Health program, it's almost 25-30% of what we're facing as a deficit. So we have to do a better job. Plain and simple, we have to do a better job.
Very good. Mike Finn, State Rep, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about a number of topics. We covered a lot. Thank you so much. We're going to have the last word for you after the break. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been discussing the infrastructure and development projects in the greater Springfield area. We found out about the economic impact as well as how cities and towns and drivers will be affected during construction. I hope that we got some of your questions answered and that you have a better understanding of the timeline of these projects. That is our program for today. We want to thank all of our guests for joining us. Thanks to you at home for watching. And if you've missed any of it, you can watch it in full on our website at wwlp.com. From all of us here at 22 News, we wish you a wonderful Sunday. Take care.